I was folding laundry when the school called. "Miss Isabel," the voice said, "we need you to come immediately. Your sister had an episode." I remember gripping the phone tighter, sensing something had snapped, something final. When I got there, Ava was curled in a corner of the nurse's office, eyes blank. Her teacher said she had stood up in class and screamed, just one word, over and over. No. She wouldn't say what it was about, but I already knew. I'd seen the signs building for months, the exhaustion, the trembling hands, the way she flinched every time the phone rang, worried Mom would demand she come home. At 11, Ava was missing recess, skipping lunch, being pulled out of school to care for our father. A man who couldn't walk, couldn't speak, but still held dominion over every moment of her life. And Mom? She called it family duty. She said we should be proud. "This is what daughters are for," she'd whisper to Ava, brushing her hair into tight braids before sending her off to change bedpans and puree food. "Some girls your age are out smoking and partying. You're building character." What she meant was, "You're doing what I don't want to." What she meant was, "I did this to your sister. Now it's your turn." I knew, because I'd lived it first. By the time I was 13, I could catheterize a man, lift 200 pounds of dead weight from a soiled mattress, cook meals soft enough not to choke him, and clean open bed sores without gagging. All while doing homework in the glow of a TV on mute. I didn't go to parties. I didn't go to dances. I didn't go to school half the time. And when I finally got out, a scholarship, a dorm room, a chance, I made a promise to myself. I would never go back. But Ava changed everything. The day I picked her up from the school nurse's office, she didn't speak. Not in the car, not at home, not for 2 full days. On the 3rd day, I found her curled under her desk, whispering to herself. She thought she had killed him, thought that when she refused to come home and help Mom lift him, she'd let him fall. That was the moment I knew. I couldn't run anymore. I couldn't pretend that getting out meant I was free. I wasn't, because my sister was still trapped in the same house, wearing the same chains. That night, while Ava slept in my bed, clutching my old stuffed rabbit like a life vest, I sat in the living room and stared at the family photo on the wall. All I could think was, this is not a family. This is a prison, and our mother was the warden. I didn't know exactly what I would do next, but I knew one thing. I was going to get Ava out, even if it meant burning everything down to do it. My name is Isla. I'm 26 years old. On paper, I'm an intake nurse at a private pediatric clinic. In real life, I'm a woman raised on silence. The kind that doesn't just hush your voice, but rewires your bones. People at work think I'm warm, even-keeled, always ready to help. That's what they say in evaluations. Compassionate, reliable, professional. What they don't know is that I've spent a lifetime managing other people's emergencies while never letting my own show. It started when I was 6. Our father was already sick by then, though no one told me what it was. Just that he didn't go to work anymore, and when he started screaming in the night, we were supposed to ignore it. I remember creeping into the hallway one night and seeing my mother shaking him violently by the shoulder. "Stop it," she hissed. "You'll scare the girls." My sister Ava was still a baby then. Her cries mixed with his like a chorus no one wanted to hear. Our mother, Vivian, wasn't cruel in the way people expect. She didn't scream, didn't beat us, didn't lock us in closets. She just made us responsible for everything. Her exhaustion, her anger, her unfulfilled dreams, and later, his care. We were taught to call it loyalty. I remember being 10 years old and coming home with a ribbon from a school spelling bee. She took one look at it, said, "Did you even remember to thaw the chicken like I asked?" And that was the end of that. No praise, no smile, just cold correction. The world revolved around her, and his illness. By the time I was 15, I could recognize the difference between a seizure and a spasm. I could administer medication by syringe. I could smile when guests visited and say, "He's doing okay, thanks," even when he hadn't moved in 3 days. I was fluent in pretending. But here's the thing they never tell you about kids who grow up as caretakers. We get really, really good at watching. Reading rooms, anticipating danger, knowing when silence means fear and when it means punishment. That's how I knew something was wrong with Ava before she ever said it. She started drawing dark things. Not obvious. Nothing a teacher could flag. Just little figures in the margins of her math homework. Stick girls behind windows, tiny tombstones, clouds that bled. I'd ask if she wanted to talk, and she'd just shake her head. Then one day I found a list under her pillow. It said, "Things I will never be." Underneath she'd written, "Happy, safe, a kid." Ava was always softer than me. She had a laugh that made strangers turn their heads and eyes too big for her face. She still believed in Santa until she was 9. She talked to ants instead of stepping on them, and that's what scared me most. Because this house, this life, it didn't just break people. It ground down the softest parts first. She wasn't made for survival. She was made for joy. And our mother was turning her into another version of me. At work, I was balancing charts and ordering supplies. At home, I was planning quiet revolutions. I started documenting photos of Ava changing Dad's catheter, notes about the hours she spent alone with him, screenshots of texts from Mom saying, "Tell your sister to stop whining, it's just a feeding tube." I knew it wasn't enough for a case, not yet, but I'd learned to play the long game. I found a therapist who specialized in caregiver trauma and scheduled appointments for Ava, framing them as extracurriculars. Mom didn't ask questions. She was too tired or too disinterested, or maybe she just assumed Ava would come home obedient, like I always had. But Ava came back different, quieter at first, then braver. She started asking things like, "Why does Mommy never help?" Or, "Why does Daddy only smile when you're in the room?" Questions I didn't have the heart to answer. Yet. Then came the phone call from school, the meltdown, the wordless days, and I realized I'd waited too long. I thought I had time to build a perfect escape plan, but trauma doesn't wait. It detonates. Quietly. All at once. That's when I decided to bring Ava to live with me full-time. No more permission, no more guilt. I called a lawyer, gathered paperwork, filed for emergency guardianship, and for the first time in years, I saw real fear in our mother's eyes. Not because she was losing Ava, but because losing Ava meant losing control. They say people like her don't understand what they're doing, that they're wounded or sick or victims of circumstance. But Vivian knew exactly what she was doing. She just never thought anyone would challenge her. She still calls sometimes, leaves voicemails. She needs structure. She misses me. You're poisoning her against us. But I don't answer. I listen only long enough to save the evidence. And when Ava asks if she's a bad daughter for not wanting to call back, I tell her the truth. No, sweetheart, you're finally being a child. That's not betrayal. That's survival. And as for me, I'm still learning what it means to be a sister instead of a stand-in parent, to be 26, not 60, to buy candles because I like the smell, not because I need to cover the scent of sickness. But most of all, I'm learning how to build something new, not just for her, but for us both. It was supposed to be a quiet Tuesday. I was at work, halfway through my shift, when I saw the text from Ava's school counselor. "Can you come in today? There's been an incident. Ava's safe, but she's asking for you." My hands went cold. I didn't even wait to finish inputting the last patient notes. I just grabbed my bag, muttered something to the head nurse, and drove. I kept telling myself not to panic. She's safe. She's safe. But I'd seen enough trauma to know that phrase could mean anything. I found Ava in the counselor's office, curled up in a chair like she was trying to disappear. Her face was pale, and her sleeves were tugged down, knuckles white around her wrists. The counselor explained what had happened. A girl in Ava's class had called her the broken one, said she'd heard Ava was living with her sister because her mom went crazy. I could see Ava flinch as the words were repeated, even secondhand, but it wasn't the insult that had caused the incident, it was what Ava said next. "Better a sister than a mother who feeds off your sadness." The other girl laughed, mocking her, and that's when Ava threw her lunch tray, not at anyone, just against the wall. But it was loud enough to bring staff running. Her reaction was deemed concerning. The counselor was gentle but careful. "Have there been changes at home? Increased emotional stress?" I didn't tell her about the letter I found last week, slipped under our door in handwriting I recognized instantly. No name, just the words, "She still has my blood. That means I still have rights." I didn't tell her about the calls from blocked numbers or the flower delivery to my workplace with a card that read, "You stole from a grieving mother." I didn't tell her how I'd been waking at 3 a.m. convinced someone was outside our apartment, even though no alarms had gone off. I just nodded and said, "We're adjusting." Ava didn't speak until we got home. She went straight to her room, closed the door, and locked it. It wasn't until hours later, long after dinner, that I found a note slid under my bedroom door. "Do you think she'll ever stop? Not, do you think she'll come back? Or, do you think she misses me?" No, Ava knew better. The real question was whether Vivian would ever let go of the power she believed she was owed. I wrote back, "Not on her own, but we won't let her win." I slid it under her door and waited. 5 minutes later, she opened it, eyes rimmed red, nose stuffed, but calm. "Okay," she said, "then let's stop her." We began documenting everything, every voicemail, every delivery, every strange occurrence. I kept a log with timestamps. Ava started a drawing journal, not for therapy, but as record. If she saw something weird or remembered something Vivian had said or done that still lingered, she drew it. Not for analysis, for evidence. I consulted Catherine, our attorney. She recommended a protective order. "It's not about winning right now," she said. "It's about building the case so when she tries something bigger, and she will, you have the ammunition to stop her cold." I filed the paperwork the next day. That weekend, someone slashed our car tires. There were no cameras in our apartment lot, no fingerprints. The police filed a report and moved on. Ava didn't speak the whole ride to school the next morning. She just sat there, backpack on her lap, staring out the window. That night, she asked if she could sleep in my room. I said yes. I didn't ask why. Vivian escalated. She filed a motion in family court claiming I was manipulating Ava, brainwashing her. The language in her affidavit was eerily familiar. Terms like emotional alienation, influence over minor, exploitation for personal gain. Catherine said the judge wouldn't take it seriously, not without cause. But she also said, "Don't underestimate her. This motion is bait. She wants a reaction. She wants you to panic and overreach." So we didn't. We responded with quiet precision. Documentation, therapist evaluations, Ava's school records showing improvement, no history of absenteeism, no disciplinary issues beyond the one cafeteria incident. Catherine submitted it all with the confidence of someone who knew how to defang a predator, one line at a time. But Vivian didn't give up. She showed up at school one morning. She wasn't allowed on the premises, but she stood across the street holding a sign that said, "Sister or Captor." Ava saw her from the classroom window. The school called the police. I filed another report. The protective order was updated with new restrictions. Still, the damage had been done. Ava's hands shook for a full week afterward every time the doorbell rang. I sat her down that Friday. I told her the truth, not just about what was happening, but why it was happening. She's not trying to get you back because she misses you. She's trying to reclaim the part of herself that she thinks you represent. You're her proof, her trophy, and she can't stand that you're better without her. Ava nodded slowly, processing it. "So I'm not a daughter to her." I looked her in the eyes. "You were never a daughter. You were a reflection. And now she's trying to break the mirror." The court hearing was scheduled. 2 weeks away, the pressure built. Catherine prepped us for every possible angle. Ava was old enough to make a statement if she chose. I left that decision to her. She said yes, not because she wanted revenge, but because she wanted silence. I want to say it out loud so she knows I'm not afraid. The night before the hearing, we barely slept. Ava rehearsed her words over and over until they no longer sounded like sentences but truths carved into her chest. I made sure our evidence binder was flawless, cross-referenced, labeled, unshakable. On the day, Vivian arrived in pearls and fake tears. Her lawyer tried to paint her as a misunderstood single mother who'd been robbed of her family by a bitter daughter, but the evidence made that lie hard to sustain. Catherine presented recordings of Vivian's voicemails, the flower cards, the note under our door, the slashed tires, the fake social media accounts she used to harass Ava's friends. Then Ava stood, no theatrics, no tears, just quiet, shaking honesty. She didn't raise me, she controlled me, and when she couldn't anymore, she decided I didn't deserve peace, but I do. The judge ruled to make the protective order permanent. Vivian was banned from all contact, physical or digital. Any violation would be treated as criminal harassment. As we walked out of court, Ava whispered, "Is it over?" I squeezed her hand. "The war? Yes. The healing? That's just beginning." 3 weeks after the court's ruling, just when the dust had started to settle, it began again. Quietly. Insidiously. The first sign came in the form of a letter addressed to Ava from a non-profit youth scholarship foundation. Or so it claimed. The envelope looked official, and inside was an acceptance letter for a supposed writing program in Colorado. At first, I was proud. Ava had been journaling, creating short stories in her spare time, and I thought maybe she'd submitted something without telling me. But when I looked closer, the details didn't add up. There was no website, no application deadline, no return address, just a phone number and an invitation to a 2-week immersive workshop in Aspen for exceptional teens with family hardship. Catherine confirmed the number was a burner registered under an untraceable LLC. It was bait. They were trying to lure her out. That was the twist I hadn't expected. Vivian wasn't trying to regain Ava through courts anymore. She was going underground, playing the long game with manipulation and subterfuge. The protective order was still in place, but if Ava had responded, if she'd traveled, it would have become a case of runaway, not kidnapping. I sat Ava down and told her the truth. Again. This isn't over, not in the way you thought it would be. She's not coming through the front door anymore. Now she's trying the window. Ava didn't cry. She just stared at the fake letter and asked, "Why does she want me so badly?" I told her, because she lost control, and some people would rather burn the world than admit they're not in charge of it anymore. Over the next 2 weeks, more things happened. A drone was spotted outside Ava's window. A man we didn't recognize was parked across from the school 3 times in 1 week. The principal increased security, and I requested police presence during Ava's pickup and drop-off. Catherine advised me to escalate, to request federal attention. We filed a stalking complaint across state lines. But the twist wasn't just in Vivian's strategy. It was in Ava's transformation. She stopped drawing, stopped journaling, stopped speaking much at all. At first I thought it was depression, but then I realized she wasn't breaking. She was planning. I found a series of index cards taped under her bed labeled Counterplay. Each one had scenarios. What to do if followed. What to do if approached. What to do if tricked. She was building her own survival manual, one memory at a time, and it shattered me. I took a leave from work. My job at the clinic understood. They'd seen the news, read the headlines. I couldn't pretend to be a caregiver for others while mine was being hunted. Ava and I moved into temporary housing through a victim protection program. A friend of Catherine's helped us secure an apartment under pseudonyms. I changed my phone number, switched cars. Ava dyed her hair. For 2 weeks there was silence. No letters, no voicemails, no strange cars. And I started to hope again. Then came the video. It arrived via email, no subject. Just a Dropbox link. I almost deleted it, thinking it was spam, but something made me click. The video was 15 minutes long. Footage, clearly filmed on a hidden camera, of Vivian in what looked like a rented office space, speaking to a group of people seated in folding chairs. "They stole my daughter," she said. "The system helped them, and now I'm organizing the truth." A man stood and asked, "So what do you want us to do?" Vivian smiled. "Find them, follow them, record, pressure. They'll break eventually." I closed the laptop with shaking hands. Ava walked into the room at that moment. I turned and said, "We need to go, now." We moved again, this time out of state entirely. Catherine helped expedite a new court motion, this time to classify Vivian's actions under interstate harassment statutes. The FBI opened a case file. For the first time, it felt like someone beyond us was watching, but Ava didn't believe it was enough. They'll never stop her unless she's exposed, like really exposed. And that's when she did something I never saw coming. She went public. She uploaded her drawings, her journals, voice memos she'd recorded when Vivian used to scream at her through the locked door of our childhood bedroom. She blurred her face, changed her name, but the story was raw, honest. She posted it on a trauma survivor forum. Within hours, it went viral. The hashtag #FreeAva started trending. Survivors began sharing their stories of psychological entrapment, coercive parenting, parental narcissism. It wasn't just about Vivian anymore. It was bigger. Ava had tapped into something collective, and it terrified Vivian. Because narcissists don't fear justice, they fear exposure. 2 days later, the comments section was flooded with strange messages, half praise, half accusations. Some accounts claimed Ava was a liar. Others said I'd manipulated her for sympathy. One user posted a blurry photo of Ava at the grocery store. Catherine traced the account. It was linked to an email address owned by someone in Vivian's inner circle. It was the final piece of evidence we needed. The FBI issued a cease and desist, then a search warrant. Vivian's home was raided. Files, devices, hidden phones, all seized. And still, the twist wasn't over. Because in one of the hidden files was a list of names, teens, minors, all with notes beside them, what they liked, what they feared, who had custody. Vivian hadn't just been after Ava. She had built a network, a warped maternal cult designed to rescue children from guardians who didn't align with her worldview. It wasn't just about Ava. It never had been. It was about control, image, narrative. She'd been collecting stories she could fix to feed her savior complex. That was when the charges escalated. Conspiracy to commit interstate harassment, child endangerment, digital impersonation, coordinated stalking. But Ava didn't care about the charges. She just wanted it to end. The day we got the call that Vivian had been detained without bail, Ava didn't cheer. She didn't cry. She just exhaled, one long breath that had been stuck inside her for years. Can I start drawing again? She asked. I nodded. You never had to stop. We didn't attend the trial. Ava said she didn't want to see her mother's face ever again, not even from a distance. I respected that. Catherine went on our behalf and kept us updated. The verdict came in on a rainy Thursday afternoon, guilty on all counts. Vivian would serve a minimum of 12 years with no possibility of early release. The headlines were brutal, but this time, they were on our side. I expected Ava to celebrate, to smile, to feel vindicated, but she didn't. She just closed her laptop and whispered, "It's finally over," like someone who had been holding her breath for too long. That night, she slept through till morning for the first time in months. We started putting our lives back together, slowly. Ava went back to her art classes, this time with a quiet confidence that hadn't been there before. Her sketches grew more vibrant, less dark. She started drawing faces, real ones, not abstractions, people who looked strong, brave, broken, and healing all at once. She submitted one to a national art competition and got second place. She didn't tell me until after the results were announced. It wasn't about winning, she said. It was about saying, I'm still here. I returned to work part-time at first, easing into my role again. My colleagues welcomed me back without question. They'd followed the story. They knew what we'd survived. One of the nurses gave me a quiet hug in the hallway and said, "You saved her, but I think she saved you too." And she was right. Months passed. Ava turned 17. We celebrated with pizza, homemade cake, and an old karaoke machine I found on eBay. She laughed, full-throated, unguarded. It was the sound of a child who had finally stopped looking over her shoulder. She started talking about college, not just as a fantasy, but as a real plan. She wanted to study psychology and art therapy. "I want to help girls like me," she said one night while we washed dishes together. "Not just rescue them, help them stay rescued." I applied for a loan to support her education, and for the first time, it didn't feel like a risk. It felt like an investment. Catherine stayed in touch, not just as our lawyer, but as a friend. She told us the federal case against Vivian's network was still ongoing. More parents were being investigated. Ava's story had cracked open something much larger, and she was proud of that. But she didn't want to be a symbol. "I just want to be a girl who survived," she said. And then came the letter. Not from Vivian, from a stranger, a young woman named Eloise, who had seen Ava's anonymous post months before. She wrote about growing up under a similarly controlling mother, about the guilt she carried for leaving her younger brother behind, about the night she almost gave up. "Then I read your story," the letter said, "and I didn't. Thank you for existing." Ava cried reading it, not out of sadness but relief. "I thought I was shouting into a void," she said, "but someone heard me." There is no perfect ending to stories like ours. There are only quiet victories, nights without nightmares, dinners without fear, laughter that doesn't carry the weight of survival. Ava still has scars. So do I. Some days we flinch at nothing. Some mornings we triple-check the locks, but those moments grow fewer, softer, easier to breathe through. We built new traditions, Sunday movie nights, art walks on rainy afternoons, volunteering at the community center once a month. Ava became a peer mentor for young girls in foster care. She told them stories, not about trauma, but about rebuilding, about choice, about hope. One evening, as we sat on the porch watching the sun dip below the trees, Ava turned to me and asked, "Do you think I'll ever stop being angry at her?" I thought about it for a long time before answering. "Maybe not," I said, "but I think one day the anger will stop owning you. It'll just be something you carry, and you'll decide how heavy it gets to be." She nodded, then she smiled. "I'd like that." We never said the word forgiveness. It felt dishonest, like skipping over too many chapters. But we talked about freedom, not the kind granted by courts or orders, but the kind that grows when no one is watching, when you dance in your room, when you make dinner with the windows open, when you start dreaming again, not because it's safe, but because you want to. And that's where we are now, not healed, but healing, not erased, but rewriting, because survival is not the end of the story. Sometimes it's the beginning.